The agenda for this meeting is before the committee in document A/AC.183/2024/L1. If I hear no objections, I shall consider it adopted. It's so decided. I now invite the committee to consider candidatures for the posts of chair, vice chairs, and rapporteur of the committee. This is the election of the chair of the committee only. I understand vice chairs and rapporteurs will be elected in a different occasion. The Secretariat of the committee has received the following candidature. His Excellency Mr. Sheikh Niang, Permanent Representative of Senegal, as chair. Before we proceed with the election, are there any comments or questions? If there are no other requests for the floor, I shall take it that the committee approves the proposal just made and unanimously elects His Excellency Mr. Sheikh Niang, Permanent Representative of Senegal to the United Nations, as chair of the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People. I am informed that consultations for the nominations of the vice chairs and rapporteur are currently underway. Consequently, the committee will reconvene to fill the vice chair and rapporteur posts. It's so decided. I now invite His Excellency Mr. Sheikh Niang to take a seat at the podium. I didn't want to steal your central seat.
You are always central. Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset I would like to thank the Secretary General for taking the time to be with us today and for presiding over the election. As mentioned, the committee will reconvene in early March to elect members of the Bureau. Vice chairs and the rapporteur elected in 2023 will continue to serve in their personal capacity as acting members of the Bureau until then. Now, turning to item 3 on the agenda, I now have the distinct honor of giving the floor to Secretary General Antonio Guterres. You have the floor.
Mr. Chair, Ambassador Sheikh Niang, congratulations on your election to the Bureau. The committee's mandate and advocacy are crucial amidst the unresolved question of Palestine and the enormous violence and suffering, particularly since the horrific 7 October attacks by Hamas in Israel and Israel's ensuing military operations in Gaza. The death, destruction, displacement, hunger, loss, and grief in Gaza over the past 120 days are a scar on our shared humanity and conscience. And I once again condemn the horrifying attacks by Hamas and other groups that claim the lives of over 1,200 Israelis and others and call for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. There is no justification for the intentional killing, injuring, torture, or kidnapping of civilians, using sexual violence against them, or launching rockets towards civilian targets. But at the same time, nothing can justify the collective punishment of the people in Gaza. The ongoing conflict and relentless bombardment by Israeli forces across Gaza have resulted in killings of civilians and destruction at a pace and scale unlike anything we have witnessed in recent years. I'm horrified by incessant military strikes that have killed and maimed civilians and protected personnel and that have damaged or destroyed civilian infrastructure. Over 26,750 Palestinians have reportedly been killed in Gaza alone, more than 2/3 women and children. Over 70% of civilian infrastructure, including homes, hospitals, schools, water, and sanitation facilities in Gaza, have been destroyed or severely damaged. 1.7 million people have been displaced and not knowing if they will have homes to return to. No party to an armed conflict is above international law. International humanitarian law, including the principles of distinction, proportionality, and precaution in attack, must be upheld at all times, and the binding decisions of the International Court of Justice must be complied with. I also want to add that the United Nations immediately acted following the very serious allegations against UNRWA staff members. I was personally horrified by those accusations, and yesterday I met with donors to listen to their concerns and to outline the steps we are taking to address them. I underscored the importance of keeping UNRWA's vital work going to meet the dire needs of civilians in Gaza and to ensure its continuity of services to Palestine refugees in the occupied West Bank, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. UNRWA is the backbone of all humanitarian response in Gaza. I appeal to all member states to guarantee the continuity of UNRWA's life-saving work. Excellencies, the humanitarian system in Gaza is collapsing. I'm extremely concerned by the inhumane conditions faced by Gaza's 2.2 million people as they struggle to survive without any of the basics. Everyone in Gaza is hungry, while 500,000 grapple with catastrophic levels of food insecurity. I call for a rapid, safe, unhindered, expanded and sustained humanitarian access throughout Gaza. And this is particularly crucial in the north, where most missions have been denied access by Israel amid continued insecurity and fighting. We also need more crossing points into Gaza to reduce congestion and avoid checkpoints. I ask all parties to continue their active engagement with UN actors on the ground and to work closely with the newly appointed Under-Secretary General Sigrid Kaag, the UN Senior Humanitarian and Reconstruction Coordinator for Gaza, to scale up humanitarian aid to Gaza. I count on full cooperation to ensure continuous humanitarian access, and I repeat my call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. Excellencies, as we seek to address mounting needs in Gaza, we also remain focused on the deteriorating situation in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem. I'm extremely alarmed by the high levels of settler violence in the occupied West Bank, and Palestinian attacks against Israelis also continue. All of this violence must stop and the perpetrators held accountable. Intensive Israeli operations go on, including in Area A of the occupied West Bank, leading to deadly armed exchanges. Dozens of Palestinians have been arrested, with many detained without charge, including children. And the violence has not been limited to the occupied territory. Rising hostilities across the Blue Line and attacks in Syria, Iraq, and the Red Sea risk triggering a broader escalation, risking regional stability. I call for urgent steps to de-escalate the situation and spare the region from more violence before it is too late. Excellencies, the conflict must end with tangible progress towards a two-state solution, an end to the occupation, and the establishment of a fully independent, viable, and sovereign Palestinian state, of which Gaza is an integral part. Only the two-state solution, based on the 1967 lines, with Israel and Palestine living side by side, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states, in line with UN resolutions, international law, and prior agreements, can ensure the realization of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, as well as a just and lasting peace and stability in the region. The international community must not waver in its commitment. Let us work together to advance a meaningful peace process that will put an end to the tragic cycles of fear, hatred, and violence, and build a peaceful and hopeful future for Palestinians and Israelis. Thank you.
I thank the Secretary General for his statement. Mr. Secretary General, I would like to express our committee's sincere appreciation for your principled stance on Gaza, but also for your constant rejection of ongoing violations of international law and UN resolution regarding the question of Palestine. Allow me now to make a statement in my capacity as the newly re-elected chair to mark the first meeting of the committee in 2024. Monsieur le Secrétaire Général, Mesdames, Messieurs les...
Secretary General, ambassadors, dear colleagues, distinguished delegates. At the outset, on behalf of the members of the United Nations Committee for the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People, I should like to warmly thank the Secretary General for the honor that he has bestowed upon us by chairing, as usual, the process of this committee's Bureau's renewal. Secretary General, your presence with us today attests to an unwavering commitment, even at the most serious times, for a peaceful, definitive solution of the question of Palestine, pursuant to international law and the relevant resolutions of the United Nations. In this regard, I should like to commend your courage in protecting the rights of Palestinian people and your determination to mitigate the effects of the humanitarian crisis which has been ongoing in Gaza for more than 3 months. I would like to pay a warm tribute to your teams, particularly those of UNRWA, who have made the greatest of sacrifices to save innocent lives. This office has, for a long time, been facing recurrent financial problems and deserves our support more than ever. This is why I am deeply concerned by the decision of some countries to suspend their financial support to the office as a result of the serious accusations targeting a few members of their staff. Based upon the responsible decision of the United Nations authorities to carry out investigations and shed light on these allegations, I should like to urge these countries to revert their decision because of the dramatic consequences that this decision has upon the lives of over 2 million Gazans. In any case, I should once again like to commend the action of Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini at the head of UNRWA and underline the absolute need for the continued activities of the office. Secretary General, I should like to seize this opportunity to pay a warm tribute to our precious collaborators in the Palestinian Rights Division. Their wisdom is a boon in accomplishing our mandate. This year, once again, their commitment has been commensurate to the mission conferred upon us by the United Nations General Assembly. This is why I should like to urge the division to continue its efforts to provide information about the activities and the deliverables of the committee and raise awareness about the definitive resolution of the situation in Palestine and the peaceful resolution of this, which is a sine qua non for peace and international peace and security, in particular in the Middle East. Dear colleagues, allow me also to thank you for the trust that you have once again placed in me and in my country to continue to hold the chairship of your committee. In this regard, please be assured of the constant commitment of Senegal and its government in pursuing with you the necessary efforts to accomplish this mandate conferred upon us under Resolution A-Res 3376 Roman 30 of the 10th of November 1975 to work towards the full realization of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. I also would like to commend the unwavering commitment of the members of the Bureau in accompanying me in implementing the committee's mandate. This is particularly honourable on their part, particularly in this very difficult year. Ladies and gentlemen, in my speech last year, as if in a premonition, I was alarmed that 2023 could be a particularly difficult year, as I was saying, because of the dangerous cycle of violence on the ground, against a backdrop of increased political tensions and a stalling of the peace process. To substantiate my words, I cited the record high number of Palestinian deaths recorded since the United Nations started documentations in 2005, as well as an intensification of Israeli occupation and settlement, including in East Jerusalem, an increase in clashes, attacks, violence, and Israeli military operations, and I also mentioned the persistence of illegal unilateral measures, including provocation and incitement. Now, I must note that the situation of the Palestinian people has continued to deteriorate throughout 2023 and throughout the occupied territory. All of this attests to the persistence of a collective failure to ensure that the rights of the Palestinian people are respected. We are horrified by the current drama happening before our eyes since the 7th of October 2023. I do wish to recall that since the very outset, the committee had condemned these attacks, which had cost the lives of 1,140 Israelis, and has called for de-escalation and redynamization of the peace talks. It is deplorable that, according to most recent figures, almost 26,000 Palestinians, mostly women and children, as well as 142 UNRWA staff, have been killed. As well as this bleak perspective, we are seeing the situation of almost 1.9 million internally displaced. That is 85% of the population who are deprived of everything, even of shelter, because even the UNRWA shelters have not been spared. In this regard, the committee urges all parties to continue their efforts to ensure safe, unhindered humanitarian access under United Nations supervision. In this regard, the committee will continue to support all initiatives to support the Palestinian people on the one side, and also to document, as far as is possible, this terrible situation so as to raise awareness and foster action. The human drama in Gaza since October is a continuation of the first 9 months of 2023. It sheds light on certain activities by the enemies of peace, but also a certain lack of interest in the question of Palestine, which is sometimes reduced to its humanitarian dimension, whereas it is actually legal and also political. International law protects the whole of Palestinian people, from the Gaza Strip to the West Bank, who cannot be the scapegoats of a logic of vengeance. International law preserves the integrity of their rights to a single state within safe and internationally recognized borders, with East Jerusalem as the capital. Just as a reminder, in last October, the committee underlined the study on the legality of Israeli occupation of the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, following on from the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice on the legal consequences arising from the ongoing violation by Israel of the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination from its prolonged occupation, settlement and annexation of the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967. In this regard, the committee also welcomed the recent decision of the International Court of Justice on the 26th of January 2024, following the welcome initiative of South Africa, and I congratulate them warmly here for this. As a result of this decision, the court calls upon Israel to take measures to protect the Palestinian population, including with regard to access to humanitarian aid. In this regard, on behalf of the committee, I should like to invite Israel and the international community to ensure that the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people are respected in all their dimensions, and that they are re-established where they have been flouted. The committee will continue to closely follow the judicial procedures underway, including in the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, it is regrettable to note that the implementation of law requires political will, which is difficult to mobilize when it comes to Palestine. In this regard, I regret the hesitancies of the Council, the Security Council, which took 39 days to pronounce itself for the first time, despite the pressing humanitarian crisis. I hope very much that the Security Council will eventually hear the many voices calling for a ceasefire, as attested to by the resolutions adopted on the 27th of October and 12th of December 2023 by the 10th Emergency Special Session of the United Nations General Assembly on the illegal measures taken by the Israeli authorities in occupied East Jerusalem and in the rest of occupied Palestinian territory. This ceasefire is necessary to spare innocent lives. There are other logics which offer only Pyrrhic victories, whether they're based on hatred or on fear. It is time to start to heal the wounds which have been reopened in so many places, an indispensable step on the way to rebuilding trust and resuming down a path towards peaceful coexistence. In this regard, on behalf of all the members of the committee, I should like to reaffirm the United Nations position on the two-state solution, Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security within recognized borders on the basis of pre-1967 borders. Be assured that through its work programme, the committee will continue to engage with the member states and regional groups in order to advance the Palestinian cause. It will also support in this way any initiative aiming to achieve the full realisation of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people and a just, rules-based solution. I thank you.
Now let me give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Riyad Mansour of the State of Palestine to the United Nations for an update on the situation in the OPT. And at the end of his intervention, we'll allow some time. We'll have a recess to allow the Secretary General to leave the room. Excellency, Mr. Mansour, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, my twin brother, Ambassador Sheikh Niang, for everything that this committee, under your wise and effective leadership, has been doing since 1975 in advancing the just cause of the Palestinian people for the attainment of their inalienable rights, including their right to self-determination, statehood, and the right of the refugees to return to their homes in accordance with international law and relevant UN resolutions. Allow me to congratulate you again for assuming this very important position as the chair of this very important committee, the last committee of its kind in the United Nations. Allow me also to welcome among us the Secretary General and to thank him for his briefing. And let me reiterate in front of this committee our admiration and respect to the Secretary General for standing so tall in defending justice, defending the rights of the Palestinian people, defending UNRWA, and calling early in this horrific situation that we are going through for a humanitarian ceasefire and invoking Article 99 of the Charter of the United Nations. This principled position by the giant leader of the United Nations at this very tough and difficult global situation is something that deserves not only our respect and admiration, but a total support for him to continue leading our organization in the right direction for the attainment of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. Mr. Chairman, I know that last year was the most difficult year for the Palestinian people since the Nakba in 1948. I know that all of you know the details of this horrific situation of the Palestinian people in the occupied territory, particularly in the Gaza Strip. The numbers are astounding. The number of Palestinians killed, particularly the children, women, and the vulnerable, is the highest number of casualties in a short period of time in any conflict since World War II. And the number of injured and the number of who might die from injuries and lack of medicine because of the collapse of the hospital systems and the hunger and the thirst and the lack of fuel. These crimes are beyond descriptions, and I still remember very vividly those who went and visited the Gaza Strip, including Mr. Lazzarini, when he said that kids were running after his movement from one place to another, repeating only two words: a piece of bread and water. This is the situation of the Palestinian people today. We, in our cultures, we never faced famine, hunger, or begging for food. We have a fabulous system of support among us. My mother used to cook for our neighbors before feeding us. We are proud people. We are resilient. We haven't seen what we are going through in the Gaza Strip. And this crime has to be stopped, and those responsible for inflicting this horrific situation on us should face justice and should face accountability in every place possible, including in the international legal system. Mr. Chairman, this year as we move ahead, we have monumental task before us, and we need to rise up to that occasion. We, first of all, need to stop this war immediately. We need to have a ceasefire. And we need to have the ceasefire yesterday and the day before and the day before, because once we succeed in having ceasefire in place, we can save every day lives of hundreds of our people and save hundreds from being injured. And we can hopefully succeed in not allowing the crime against humanity of forced transfer to take place by putting the peoples in such a situation, particularly around Rafah, in which there is more than 1 million people today there. There is a huge bubble on the fence between Egypt and the Gaza Strip. And if we do not succeed in putting an end to this war through a ceasefire now, it is very possible that this bubble might burst and we find 1 million, 1.5 million Palestinians living a second Nakba in the Egyptian side, and that in Sinai, and that is part of the plan of the current extremist fascist leadership in Israel, who want to destroy Gaza completely and to depopulate it, and to follow the same style of depopulating or expelling as many Palestinians from the West Bank and throw them into Jordan, so that the dream of the extremes among the extremists in living the dreams of biblical stories of about 2,500 years ago of the so-called Judea and Samaria. It is our collective duty to stop these crimes from happening. And the entrance to that is a ceasefire, and we need to accomplish ceasefire as quickly as possible. And that's why at 11 o'clock today, we are going back to the Security Council to have a briefing in an open meeting in which we will be calling for a ceasefire and then circulating a draft resolution with our brothers in Algeria, and also in collaborations with South Africa and all of the Arab group and the OIC and NAM, all of us united as one after the Kampala summit, in which the 3 objectives of a ceasefire, humanitarian assistance up to the needs of the entire population of the Gaza Strip in all parts of the Gaza Strip, the north, the south, the east, the west, and thirdly, not to allow the forced transfer to happen. We are united around these 3 objectives. 120 countries in NAM, not a single one suggested an amendment for these requests and asked that we put before them in the summit in Kampala, in addition to many others who are not members of NAM, who are rallying around these objectives. We've accomplished certain things in the Security Council and in the General Assembly, but yet we did not accomplish fully these 3 objectives, and these are the top priorities for our committee, for the United Nations, for NAM, for the OIC, for the African group, because they are, all of them are part of NAM, and for the Arab group. We need to not to relent for a second in order to accomplish these objectives. In addition to that, we need to support all efforts in the ICJ regarding what South Africa did in a very noble and principled way in taking the plausible situation of genocide in the Gaza Strip to the ICJ with a view of provisional measures on top of the calls for the provisional measures to stop the fighting, to stop the continuation of the genocide. So that this is an added element to our strategy and our strength in order to succeed as quickly as possible in putting an end to this war. And let me also add, we are not going to keep reiterating the two-state solution. We are not going to continue reiterating that we need a political horizon. We are sick and tired of reiterating the obvious, and we see before our eyes the destruction of the two-state solution without resorting to practical steps to save the two-state solution and to keep the hope alive and to keep the possibility of the two-state solution in becoming a reality. In this connection, we have to, all of us, mobilize as we did in Kampala again. Once we succeed in putting an end to this war, we are going to be moving at least in two tracks. One, it is high time for the state of Palestine to become a membership at the United Nations. This is a global consensus in the two-state solution. There is no issue at the UN that enjoys global consensus more than unity around the two-state solution. So we don't want to keep repeating it without opening doors for it. So therefore, the admission of the state of Palestine to membership is an investment in peace and as an investment in saving the two-state solution. In this connection, we have a group of friends in Europe, led by Spain, Portugal, and others, that they need to recognize the state of Palestine today in order to make it easier for us to move into the Security Council for the admission of the state of Palestine. And the other thing that we need to work for very strongly is this idea of the two-state solution. It needs a mechanism. The mechanism has to be the convening of an international peace conference. We will go to the General Assembly with you and all of us, and NAM and all of our friends, including the Europeans who are accepting the concept of an international peace conference. We are going to legislate a resolution which gives the authority to the Secretary General within a time frame to contact whomever he thinks are concerned and connected to this conflict to convene an international conference on the basis of the global consensus, international law, Arab Peace Initiative, and relevant UN resolutions, and to begin that process for the implementation of the cause of the two-state solution. These are the lessons that we need to learn from this tragic situation of what happened in the Gaza Strip. And if we do not learn these lessons in order to put an end to the tragedy of the Palestinian people, which lasted for 75 years, it means that we did not learn a damn thing. And therefore, we are not going to be relevant in the eyes of the people who are telling us day in and day out how many resolutions you're going to bring to me, what I need from you to put an end to the misery of the Palestinian people, particularly in the Gaza Strip. We need action, we need results, and we need to see it as quickly as possible. Mr. Secretary General, we trust you. We will work with you. We have a tall order before us, starting from putting an end to the war and then embarking in seeing changes in a practical way so that the Palestinian people get what they deserve, their inalienable rights, including self-determination, statehood, and the rights of the refugees. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General.
I thank Mr. Riyad Mansour for his very strong statement, very passionate one. And I fully concur with the priorities and the roadmap you have highlighted. And in face of the tragedy unfolding in Gaza and the violations we are seeing in the entirety of the Palestinian territory, rest assured of the steadfast determination of our committee to live up to its mandate to protect the rights of the Palestinian people. So I would like at this point to thank the Secretary General for not only for his presence, but his always principled positions and his initiatives for peace, discreet and openly known on the question of Palestine. We shall now suspend the meeting for a few minutes to allow the Secretary General to leave the room. Once again, thank you. Excellencies, dear colleagues, before we proceed to the agenda, allow me, on behalf of the committee, to welcome the following ambassadors, permanent representatives who have recently taken up their new posts here in New York. Her Excellency, Mrs. Maria Mikhail of Cyprus, His Excellency, Mr. Jose Javier de la Gasca Lopez Dominguez of Ecuador, His Excellency, Mr. Paul Goa Zumanigi of Guinea, His Excellency, Mr. Michael Imran Kanu of Sierra Leone, His Excellency, Mr. Amar Benjama of Algeria, His Excellency, Yaou Sangare Bakari of Niger. On behalf of the committee, I would like to extend to you our most welcome, our warmest welcome among us, and express our best wishes for your important work. I'm certain that you will continue supporting the committee's mandate as your predecessors. Excellencies, dear colleagues, we will now hear two important briefings, after which the floor will be open for statements. It's my pleasure now to invite to the podium Ambassador Matthew Joyini, Permanent Representative of South Africa to the United Nations, who has kindly accepted our invitation to brief the Committee on South Africa's application instituting proceedings against Israel before the International Court of Justice for violations of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and very good morning, Excellencies, dear colleagues. Chairperson, let me upfront apologize because when you invited me, which I appreciate the invitation, not only to this meeting but to that of the Bureau, I was very keen. But today, what we didn't foresee is the meeting of the Security Council that is taking place at 11 o'clock and where South Africa is a participant in that meeting and under Rule 37. So I will take you through, but sadly I will not be able to be here to hear your thoughts, your comments on this, and I do apologize before that. Chair. Okay. All right. Good. Okay, just then, and in terms of the briefing itself, so it means then I will cut to the chase if you allow me. As you now know, that South Africa instituted proceedings against Israel before the ICJ regarding implementation of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. With regards to the Israeli conduct in the present conflict in the Gaza, and we've heard a lot about that conduct. We've heard it from the SG, we've heard it from the chair, and we heard it from my brother Riyad Mansour. South Africa and Israel are both parties to the convention, which has its objective the prevention and punishment of perpetrators of the crime of genocide. And this includes, according to Article 3 of the Convention, genocide, conspiracy to commit genocide, direct and public incitement to commit genocide, attempt to commit genocide, and complicity in genocide. And as you know by now, when South Africa instituted those proceedings, we also requested for provisional measures. And provisional measures were asked for because we do know that it'll take long for the case to be looked at the ICJ. And the period that it'll take, we cannot wait. We needed to halt. We need to stop what is the carnage that is being carried out by Israel in Gaza. And the provisional measures allows you to do that in terms of the convention. So South Africa, in its submission, specifically requested those measures to prevent further irreparable harm to the people of Palestine. We now know that the hearing on the provisional measures, not the merit of the case, took place on the 11th and 12th of January, where on the 11th, South Africa put its case forward, and on the 12th, Israel had an opportunity to do so itself. Coming to the ruling, it came out on the 26th of January. We're pleased that it didn't take long before the court came back with the ruling. And essentially, the ruling did state that there is a dispute, in terms of how we interpret the convention, where South Africa insists that Israel is not complying with the convention, because you will all remember that there was a situation where Israel wanted to claim that there is no dispute. The court ruling also established jurisdiction, including the standing of South Africa. The court established plausibility, and again, you've heard this morning about that plausibility. And the court agreed that there is irreparable prejudice risk, and therefore the court provided the measures, indicated the measures, not exactly in terms of how we asked, but the court provided measures. And I will briefly indicate the measures that were provided or indicated by the court. The court said Israel must take all, there were 6 of those measures that were indicated, that Israel must take all measures to prevent the commission of genocide, firstly. It must also ensure with immediate effect that its military forces do not commit genocide, that Israel prevent and punish the direct and public incitement to commit genocide in relation to the people of Gaza, that Israel take immediate and effective measures to enable the provision of humanitarian aid in Gaza, that Israel take immediate and effective measures to prevent the destruction in Gaza and ensure preservation of evidence related to the allegations and of acts of genocide. Importantly, the last measure, that Israel provide a report in 1 month on all measures that it has taken to give effect to the order of the court. So when you look at all these measures that the court indicated, it does establish plausibility. Otherwise, it wouldn't have given these measures. It's important that we mention that South Africa requested a provisional measure of ceasefire. That was important and critical. We did not get that provisional measure. However, one can, if you look at the measures that have been provided, for them to be implemented effectively as it is stated, fully as it is stated, you need a ceasefire for that to happen. However, the court stopped short of pronouncing on a ceasefire. I wish to thank the Bureau itself, members of this Bureau, and other member states that supported South Africa in its case at the ICJ, that publicly and otherwise, and those that welcomed the ruling of the court. Now we need to move on and focus on what the next steps would be in terms, now that the court has made a ruling. As I said, South Africa is watching closely what is happening. And like you and those who spoke this morning, we all recognize that Israel continues to behave in a manner that is contrary to the court order. We all are aware of it, and actually has reached that threshold that says one can argue that it is not complying by the order. However, we will see when we receive the report in a month's time in terms of what it says for implementing the court order. But as much we are watching closely for that, two processes are likely to happen or will happen depending on how Israel respond. It is our wish that Israel fully complies with the court order. The one part would be the merit stage that will start, and the court will indicate when that merit stage will start. And this is when we again will request member states who can to join South Africa to make interventions in the merit stage. But that guidance will be provided by the court. But in terms of and then on the other hand, regarding the provisional measures, in terms of Article 79 of the rules of the court, before the matter can proceed to the merit stage, preliminary objections can be raised regarding jurisdiction or admissibility of the matter before the court. And as I said, Israel did indicate that they will raise objections. They have already raised objections. Should they do so again, that will have to be attended to prior to moving to the merit stage. So if and when the preliminary objections are raised, the proceedings to the merit phase will be suspended until the preliminary objections are dealt with. And the outcome of that process, that is of the preliminary objections, will inform the next move for the parties, and most importantly, for what South Africa will do. And in terms of the merit stage, where interventions by interested states can be made, in terms of Article 62 of the Statute of the ICJ, a state having an interest of a legal nature which may be affected by the outcome of the case may request a permission from the court to intervene in the matter. So any state that has an interest in this may request the court permission from the court to intervene. And in terms of Article 63 of the convention, state parties to the convention in question also have a right to intervene in the proceedings. The registrar shall inform all the state parties to the convention to that effect, and the interventions will have to be done in accordance with the timelines which shall be communicated by the court. Normally, the timelines will require written submissions to be filed before the commencement of the date for the oral hearings. So this is not only limited to those member states that are parties to the convention, but any other member state can do so. So that will be the next step. I have already indicated that we will be watching with interest the report that will come out that Israel is supposed to submit at the end of 1 month, as indicated in the provisional measures, and that will also inform us on how to proceed. And some of you might have a question to say, what if Israel doesn't comply with the order? We have heard that it doesn't intend to do so. But just to say that South Africa is hopeful, really hopeful that Israel will respect and abide by the ruling of the court. If not, South Africa will invoke any legal provision at its disposal for the enforcement of the ruling of the court against Israel, including, and some of you may be aware of it, Article 94.2 in the Charter of the UN. Coming to the support that we are seeking, Chair, from members of the committee. Firstly, as I said earlier, we are grateful for the continuous support that you have provided us. We request and encourage states to consider making interventions provided for in Article 62, as I mentioned, and Article 63 of the ICJ Statute, depending on which one, as the case may be for you, as your submissions will really bolster the case and strengthen the case further. We understand that the international legal processes are very lengthy and costly, and states having challenges of resources are requested to make public official statements that declare their support for South Africa and for the case. And other states may have also done the same as other member states here have done. I am looking at Nicaragua. And any assistance or advice on how best to proceed, canvassing for support, can be offered to South Africa. We are here with you, Chair, and we will welcome any assistance or any support that you can provide. Let me stop there, and thank you, and I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Joini, for your very important and thorough briefing. And we once again commend South Africa for that historical stance and call for justice and standing up as the moral conscience of the world. And it's already something very good that the ruling on the provisional measures has been unequivocally very positive and very assertive. I know that we'll have other steps. So what we will do now is to, when we come to the debate part, we'll leave, I will allow delegation to make comments. You have here your representative. I'm sure that we will have, this is an ongoing process, and I'm sure you will come back and brief the committee as long as this process will be going. So thank you once again for coming, and we appreciate everything. Thank you. I have now the pleasure to invite to the podium Mrs. Greta Gunnarsdottir, Director of UNRWA Representative Office, New York, who has taken the time to be with us and who will be delivering a briefing on the situation in UNRWA's areas of operation particularly in the West Bank and Gaza. Welcome to the committee, and you have the floor. Good to see you. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, Your Excellency Ambassador Nyang, and Excellencies, members of the Bureau, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by congratulating the Chair and other members of the Bureau on their re-election, and also to thank you for inviting me to brief about UNRWA to the committee during these extraordinary times, both for the agency and for the refugees themselves. This year is the 75th anniversary of UNRWA, and last year, around this time, we were starting within the agency to discuss how to commemorate this anniversary this year, and we felt that there was not a cause for celebration because our mere existence is a reflection of the failure to reach a just and lasting solution for the Palestinian refugees. However, we thought we could certainly celebrate the enormous impact that UNRWA has had on the lives of millions and millions of Palestinian refugees during its existence through its programs of education and health and social services, microfinance, camp infrastructure, and humanitarian assistance. I say this because before I dive into the issues that are currently on the top of all of our agendas, I want to remind us all that UNRWA is first and foremost a human development agency, providing under normal circumstances, if we can ever talk about normal circumstances for the refugees in our 5 fields of operations, education to over 500,000 children in over 700 schools, vocational training for 8,000 young women and men contributing to their employability, providing healthcare services through our over 100 healthcare centers and our hospital in Kalkilia in the West Bank, and social services to poor households, and microfinance loans to men and women entrepreneurs. This is what we normally do, and this in accordance with our mandate that has always been supported by the vast majority of member states. Now, UNRWA is also a UN agency and very much a part of the UN family. And why am I saying this? Because it's obvious, but sometimes it feels as if UNRWA is somehow considered to be apart from the UN when we have discussions here at the UN. And one of the reasons can be that our headquarters are not here, they are not in Geneva, they are in the region, far away from member states. They were moved from Vienna following the Oslo Accords because then there was optimism for a peaceful solution to the conflict prevailing, and then the HQ was moved to Gaza. Another explanation is also that UNRWA, our operations take place in the region, and we have a very small presence here, so we are not participating in discussions or processes here at the UN unless they directly affect UNRWA. This is because we are a direct service provider, and we are first and foremost operational, so we are not participating in all these processes on the SDGs or resolutions in the third committee or whatever, trying to influence them. We implement what is decided by the General Assembly. And because that is what we do. We directly contribute to the SDGs. We directly contribute to the realization of economic and social rights, human rights for the Palestinian refugees. And as a direct service provider, and this is important in today's discussion about the agency, is that every day our staff on the ground is making direct impact in the lives of the Palestinian refugees that we are servicing. If we become unable to continue our services in light of what is happening due to underfunding, the impact will be immediately felt also on the ground, and not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, in Jordan, in Syria, and Lebanon. Because we are not only, the focus is of course on Gaza, but we are also providing services every day in the other fields of operations. I'm going to start with the situation in Gaza now, but I'm not going really to elaborate on all the different aspects of the catastrophic humanitarian situation that the Palestinians are suffering, because I'm assuming also that everybody here knows more or less all the facts. And on the numbers of people killed, we have heard that here today, the injured, displaced, multiple displacement, overall destruction of the healthcare system, housing and other infrastructure, and the hunger. And that is something that Ambassador Mansour touched upon. That is something that has not been taking place before in the OPT. And in north of Gaza, the population is on the verge of famine. And we hear people that when the flour bags and so on have been taken away and there is the leftover stuff on the ground, people are actually trying to take what they can that is left. So, I mean, the situation is really, really dire. And so, in a nutshell, the population has been denied all dignity and been reduced to struggling for their mere survival. We are publishing situation reports 3 times a week, and I hope all of you find them useful. But you might have noticed in the last few reports that we have published that we have not been able to provide additional update on a variety of issues. And this is due to the security situation in combination with internet connectivity. And so we just do not have the update. And this is again a demonstration of the furthering of the deterioration on the ground, and where there are not, and nota bene, there are not many actors on the ground that can actually report to the outside world, but UNRWA can. That is what we are always trying to do, is to convey information about our operational environment and the plight of the people we are serving. So Gaza needs UNRWA. The need of the civilian population in Gaza should be prioritized, and that requires enabling UNRWA to provide shelter, safe shelter, protection, and humanitarian assistance throughout the territory. We are by far the largest humanitarian actor in Gaza. That was the case before the war, and that is the case now. We have 13,000 staff in Gaza, and 3,000 core staff are reporting to work every day, giving their communities a lifeline, which can collapse any time now due to the lack of funding. And I also want to note that our staff is also displaced, and people are, we are emptying some shelters in Khan Yunis and evacuating further towards the coast, and that applies also to our staff. but then our staff continues to work. And we run these shelters and food and wheat flour distribution, transport, logistics, and other humanitarian actors depend on UNRWA for them to be able to deliver their assistance in Gaza. And this is an important point also under the current discussion that is taking place, because if we collapse, the whole operation in Gaza will collapse. So, and as some of you might have heard yesterday when USG CAG was talking to the press, she spoke exactly to this point, that no other organization can replace UNRWA in Gaza. So I just wanted also, because because sometimes I hear from people on the ground, and we do not often talk about women and children, and those are issues, of course, that are very pertinent to us here, and where there are all these obligations that UN agencies also should follow. And what I'm told with women, just to take a couple of examples, because the plight of the women in Gaza is that they are living under complete lack of dignity and privacy. The lack of menstrual products means that they are stuck inside tiny and unsanitary makeshift tents, unable to go outside. We have to remember that the sanitation is lacking in Gaza for most people, and not everybody has more than one set of clothes to wear. And many women, and this is not the first time I'm hearing this, is that they are restricting their food and water intake. So during the day, even if it is available, so they do not have to go to the restrooms at night where there is no light, with all the insecurity and lack of privacy that entails. And female-headed households are at significant risk of being left out in terms of aid and so on and so forth, because they are more vulnerable in this current environment. Now, with children, I think we have all seen the young children on the television screen, and they have been stripped of their innocence at a time when they should be learning in school and they should be playing in the compounds with their friends. They are instead out in the streets looking for scraps of food or material for shelters. The constant communication blackouts increase the risk of family separation, which has resulted in soaring levels of unaccompanied and separated children. And I'm going to quote my colleague who said, when I was at the Al Nasser hospital a week ago, just a day before Khan Yunis was engulfed in heavy fighting, a group of children surrounded me, and they had only one ask. They wanted a ceasefire. This isn't something that any child should beg for, and they shouldn't even know what is a ceasefire. So with these allegations against our staff for having participated in the 7th of October crimes, these allegations understandably have been addressed by the agency and the UN with the seriousness they demand from the very start. The Commissioner General has terminated the contracts of 8 of our staff members on the information provided by the Israeli authorities without any prior investigation. This is an exception to do it this way, but in light of the seriousness of the allegations, this is what he decided to do. And 2 of these people are confirmed dead. One has not been identified, and we have not been able to match him with our staff lists. Now, an investigation has been launched with the OIOC, which will hopefully be able to act swiftly, because there is, of course, a lot of pressure on the agency, and will be a lot of pressure on the investigation to try to get through this as soon as possible to find out the facts of the matter. I just want to mention, because there have been a lot of details appearing in the media, and also additional allegation of crimes by UNRWA staff or neutrality breaches. And I just want to say that these allegations, they are appearing in the media. We are not receiving this information, these dossiers that are being referred to. So I just want to, because this can lead to the misconception that we are not being transparent, but we are being transparent on these allegations that we were provided with. So I also want to mention, if you have not been informed, that so what UNRWA does every year is that we provide both the host authorities as well as Israel with a list of all our staff members. And we have never received any feedback or any red flags. Now, the agency has funds until the end of February to keep its operation running. And as I said before, if we collapse, it's not only the operations in Gaza, but the operations in all the 5 fields. And I think all member states are aware of the sort of, when it comes to our budget, the importance of the program budget, because that is really the basis for everything else, the salaries of our staff and the operational costs and so on and so forth that we need to be able to have up and running. So we are appealing to those donors who have suspended funding, if at all possible, to kindly review their decisions so we can prioritize the dire humanitarian needs on the ground in line with the principle of humanity, the recent Security Council resolutions, as well as the ruling of the ICJ. A further catastrophe has to be prevented. And we also appeal, of course, to other member states, if at all possible, to step in to ensure the continued services of the agency. Now, I would like to thank for all the expressions of confidence in UNRWA that we have received, and confidence in our colleagues from member states and other sister agencies, and also from civil society organizations that have been coming forward now in the past 2 days. And then I would like to just sort of reiterate the requests that we have as UNRWA, in addition to what I have mentioned. And the irony is that these are the same requests that we have been repeating throughout. It is for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, and there we are echoing the children. For unhindered access into the territory and throughout the territory, including the north, and for sufficient and meaningful humanitarian aid, and to ensure that we and other humanitarian organizations can do our job, to have full respect by the warring parties for international humanitarian law, the protection of civilians, and the protection of UN installations, so we can provide the services and the shelters that we are supposed to be able to provide. And to never again have to say that there is no safe place in Gaza. We have been saying that for far too long. And that's what I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank Director Gunnarsdottir for her important and comprehensive briefing. Mrs. Director, I reaffirm here the support of the committee to the work of your agency, and we extend our deepest condolences to the families of UNRWA staff who are mourning their loved ones. I would like now to open the floor for statements pertaining to the two briefings we have heard. You can also, if you want, express your views on any other issues you deem important. But in view of the full agenda today, I would like to ask Excellencies to be as brief as possible. And please signal by raising your flag or pressing the button. I can see Indonesia. Indonesia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Allow me to firstly congratulate you, Chair, on your re-election as Chair of the committee. Your reappointment is not just an acknowledgement of your commitment and excellent work that you have done, but also the confidence that the committee has on your leadership, especially during these difficult times for the Palestinian people. Rest assured, Chair, of Indonesia's commitment to work and support you in furthering the committee's work. I take this opportunity to thank the Secretary General for his statement and for his personal commitment and leadership in our work to realizing the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. I also take this opportunity to thank Ambassador Joyni of South Africa for the briefing on the development of the case of on genocide at ICJ. We commend and fully support South Africa to bring this case forward. I also appreciate the briefing by the Director of UNRWA on the works of UNRWA on the ground and the development on the recent allegation of UNRWA staff. Indonesia is following very closely the development on the allegation of the 12 UNRWA staff. We commend the quick action that has already been taken by the Secretary General and to undertake a thorough and transparent investigations. No doubt, these allegations are serious and must be thoroughly investigated. But it is also very important to contextualize these allegations, which is on a few individuals out of thousands employed by UNRWA. While we must ensure individuals proven guilty be appropriately punished, our response to UNRWA and its important work must be appropriate, proportional, and measured. Our focus should be to ensuring a ceasefire, provide adequate and sustained humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians in Gaza. For Indonesia, we look at this situation through a prism of humanity. The situation in Gaza has been described by many UN agencies from being dire, on the brink of humanitarian collapse, and the latest hellish. No matter the words used to describe the situation in Gaza, there is a global consensus that the people of Gaza cannot survive without intensified humanitarian assistance. And as stated by the Secretary General, UNRWA is the backbone in providing humanitarian assistance in Gaza at this moment. In this context, whether the allegation is true or not, we stress that innocent Palestinians, whether in Gaza, West Bank, Lebanon, Jordan, or Syria, should not be the one that is punished. We call on countries that has suspended its contribution to UNRWA to reconsider. For Indonesia, we continue to be committed to continue providing assistance to Palestine. We have already sent through Egypt food and medicines for the people in Gaza. We will continue our contribution to UNRWA, including realizing our commitment to triple our contribution that we made in 2023. And from my discussions with Jakarta last night, we will be able to fully provide our contribution for this year, this month, February. Chair, last year I referred to the action of the occupying power is creating hell on earth for the Palestinian. This year, today, we are seeing this in reality. We cannot continue to turn a blind eye on these horrible realities. We call on the committee to redouble its efforts to strengthen engagement and mobilize the international community to ensure, first of all, a ceasefire and increase and sustain humanitarian assistance to be delivered, prevent forced displacement, and also to work on a pathway towards peace through international conference, beginning with the immediate full membership of Palestine and realizing the two-state solution with a clear time frame. With this objective, we must strive and work together in the committee. Thank you, Chair.
I thank the Ambassador of Indonesia for his statement. I will now give the floor to Turkey, who will be followed by Cuba, Nicaragua, Malaysia, Venezuela, China, and Guyana. Turkey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We congratulate you on your election. And we also welcome and we thank for the briefings by South Africa and UNRWA. As the Palestinian people are facing the biggest tragedy in recent history, the work of this committee proves to be more crucial than ever. Excellencies, as we speak, the occupying power continues to attack the civilian population of Gaza, causing further casualties, displacement, and destruction. And in the West Bank, the settler violence is at a record level. Our common fear of the regional spillover of this conflict has now become a reality. We are alarmed by the recent incidents in the Red Sea, Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Iran, and Pakistan. Since the outset of the conflict under this roof, we have been calling for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire, unimpeded humanitarian aid, and compliance with international law. Yet over 100 days into the conflict, the international community is still unable to stop the bloodshed in Gaza as well as the West Bank. Excellencies, for the last 4 months, we have witnessed serious crimes committed by Israel. It is of paramount importance that those responsible are held accountable in order to restore faith in international law. And in this connection, we welcome the application by South Africa, a fellow member of this committee, before the ICJ, and the provisional measures indicated by the court to prevent genocide and further destruction. Turkey follows the proceedings very closely. We expect immediate and full implementation of the court's order to stop the bloodshed in Palestine. More than 2 million people are at imminent risk of famine. Health systems is on the brink of collapse, and the coming weeks would mean the difference between life and death for thousands of innocent civilians. The UN agencies warn that the number of deaths from starvation and diseases could match the unprecedented number of civilians killed by relentless strikes. And right now, UNRWA is the lifeline for the Gazans. UNRWA schools and premises inevitably turned into shelters overnight. Targeted by Israeli attacks, more than 150 UNRWA personnel have been killed in Gaza so far. And working tirelessly under ghastly conditions, UNRWA staff meets the vital needs of millions of Palestinians. As the chair of the working group of the financing of UNRWA, Turkey is concerned by the decisions of some countries to suspend funding to the agency. This will primarily harm the Palestinian people, and it will amount to another collective punishment. We expect the countries that have announced suspension of funding to UNRWA to reconsider and reverse their decisions. Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs immediately made a press statement to this end. It is the joint responsibility of the international community to support UNRWA until a two-state solution is reached. Excellencies, what has transpired has once again showed that lasting peace and security in the Middle East can only be achieved through a political solution to the Palestinian question based on a two-state vision. Turkey, in a spirit of full solidarity, will work with this committee to advocate and promote the realization of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Turkey, and now I give the floor to Cuba.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chair, and congratulations to the Ambassador, Permanent Representative of Senegal, Sheikh Niang, for your re-election as the chair of this committee. At the outset, I should like to express our gratitude for the presence of the United Nations Secretary General here at the committee's meeting today. I think this does attest to his continued support and concern to ensure that the United Nations does play a relevant role in resolving the catastrophic situation currently being experienced by the Palestinian people in occupied territory and the long conflict which affects international peace and security more and more every day, with the immediate victims being the heroic and suffering Palestinian people. We are grateful for the information presented by Minister Mansour at the beginning, as well as Ambassador Greta Gunnarsdottir from UNRWA, and we are in close contact with her. Chair, we'd also like to express gratitude for the presentation made by the Permanent Representative Ambassador Joyny of South Africa. The international community, Chair, is bearing witness to the genocide being perpetuated against the Palestinian people for a number of months now. The dreadful situation currently faced by the Palestinian people sees no glimmer of hope for the moment. Quite the contrary, Israel, the occupying power, is continuing to crush the defenseless people of Gaza with bombs and missiles and apply their philosophy of power. So this is an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe of extreme proportions on the occupied Palestinian territory, which has been occupied for 75 years now. Nothing can justify this barbarity, of course. We demand an immediate, permanent ceasefire and the delivery of unconditional humanitarian aid to Gaza. Cuba unreservedly condemns assassinations and killings of civilians, particularly women, children, humanitarian workers from the United Nations system, and indiscriminate strikes against the Gazan people, the destruction of homes, hospitals, civilian infrastructure, and depriving people of basic services, water, electricity, fuel, food. These are a blatant violation of international humanitarian law. They are imposing forced displacement of the Palestinian people as well from the land which by right is theirs. Cuba rejects all the actions by the Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank, with the increased repression and killings of Palestinian people living there, again in blatant violation of international law. We need to tackle the impunity with which Israel is acting. This is due probably to its open, clear confidence and trust that it will not be answerable for its acts, because of the support of the United States government and other allies. It is unacceptable that the Security Council continue to fail to implement its own resolutions to bring an end to Israeli crimes. And the United States has historically been complicit in these. In obstructing and repeatedly using the veto to prevent the body from acting, undermining peace, security and regional stability. We will continue to call upon the Security Council to fulfill its responsibilities under the Charter of the United Nations for International Peace and Security and to adopt the necessary measures on Israel's part. With regard to the Summit on Non-Aligned Movement in Kampala, we agreed upon the urgent delivery to the Gaza Strip of International Protection Force authorized by the United Nations General Assembly with a mandate to guarantee the security and protection of the civilian people and to facilitate the entry of humanitarian assistance and food, which are so urgently needed. Our country firmly supports the request by South Africa to the International Court of Justice with regard to the violations by Israel of its obligations as a state party to the Convention for the Prevention of Genocide. This application to the main legal body of the United Nations must also be seen and understood as an urgent call to stop the horrible international crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, being committed against the Palestinian people. Our country also supports the convening of an international peace conference to guarantee the exercise of the rights of the Palestinian people. Likewise, we express our full support for the prompt entry of Palestine as a full member of the United Nations. Finally, to our colleagues in the committee, and particularly our Palestinian brothers, we reiterate the fact that we will not waver in our desire to provide a broad, just and lasting resolution to the Palestine-Israel conflict upon the basis of a two-state solution, which will allow the Palestinian people the right to self-determination and to enjoy a sovereign, independent state with its capital in East Jerusalem and pre-1967 borders, and which also guarantees the right to return for the refugees. Thank you, Chair.
Je remercie le représentant.
I thank the permanent representative of Cuba and give the floor to Nicaragua, to be followed by Malaysia.
Vous avez la parole.
Nicaragua, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. At the outset, we would like to congratulate you upon your election, once again, as chair of this important United Nations committee, which still has a lot of work to do and a great commitment to the Palestinian people and to peace. In this regard, we wish to recognize your commitment and leadership throughout this process in support of the Palestinian people and that of your country as well, for this firm, steadfast support. We are grateful to the director of UNRWA, not only for the information she's provided today, but for the information that they're providing every day. Every day, we are reading about what UNRWA is constantly communicating about the daily suffering of children, women, older people, and everything that you've been telling us about and everything that we can read every day. We recognize UNRWA's work and its importance and this reach of this work in the fight of the Palestinian people for their survival on a daily basis. We are also grateful to our brother, the Ambassador Join of South Africa and the courage of South Africa in bringing this issue to the International Court of Justice. We have always been supporting Palestine, and we are grateful too to our brother Riyad Mansour and support him and reiterate what he was saying, in that Nicaragua has always supported the fact that now it is time for Palestine to be recognized as a full member of the United Nations. We also support the international conference. We have been working hard to try to achieve that for many years. Nicaragua will support Palestine throughout this process, not just now, but always. On the 5th of December last year, our foreign minister, Denis Moncala, led a delegation of Nicaraguan people, members of our National Assembly, of our parliament, to Ramallah to express Nicaragua's firm solidarity with Palestine and its just fight, and to take the message of our president, Comandante Daniel Ortega, who said in his letter to President Mahmoud Abbas the fact that we have always been and will always continue to be together, united in all battles for national liberation. And it will always be a just fight to continue to liberate such people, following such suffering and sacrifice for the rights and defense of the sacred Palestinian people. This will bear fruit, he said in his letter. We have communicated and been supporting your work to the International Court of Justice and have said that we have been and are still in support of South Africa in this work. We are party to the Convention on Genocide and will support South Africa throughout this process as well. Yesterday, also in solidarity with the Palestinian people, there was an important highway from our capital, Managua, which was named the Gaza Highway. And the Palestinian Park of Managua was also opened a park. So we would like to express our gratitude for all the work of this committee. We need to step up our efforts. This is a time of great suffering for the Palestinian people. And I repeat now, it's time for Palestine to be a full member amongst us. Thank you very much to you and to all the members of the Bureau for the dedication and work that is being done to fulfill the mandate conferred upon us by the General Assembly. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Nicaragua. I now give the floor to Malaysia, followed by Venezuela. Malaysia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and allow me to also congratulate you on your re-election. I would also like to thank the briefers, Ambassador Joini before this, and Ms. Gunnarsdottir. I'll try to make my intervention brief. As you requested, Chair, I'll focus it to the briefing by UNRWA. Allow me to respond by saying that Malaysia supports and have full confidence in UNRWA for, well, they have always played a pivotal role as a lifeline to Palestinian refugees all over the years. The role of the agency has become all the more important since the outbreak of the devastating war in Gaza, which has seen more than 2 million Palestinians languishing in unimaginable living conditions. Mr. Chair, Malaysia has consistently contributed to UNRWA in order to help the agency undertake its crucial work. We have pledged a contribution of $1 million over the span of 5 years for the period 2021 to 2025, and had recently made an additional contribution of $2.2 million to the agency since the start of the crisis in October. Mr. Chair, Malaysia also notes the statement by the Secretary General today and yesterday concerning the ongoing investigation by the Office of Internal Oversight Services on the allegations leveled against UNRWA staff. It is important that due process be allowed to take its course. It is unwarranted and deeply regrettable that an entire agency is being penalized because of allegations against a number of its staff, considering investigations are already ongoing. At this critical juncture, where the fate of millions of people in Gaza are extremely dependent on UNRWA's role and services, it is of utmost importance that the agency continues to receive the funding it critically requires. The millions of innocent Palestinians should not be punished unjustly and further victimized. Before I end, I'd like to echo Malaysia's support for Palestine as India bid as a full member of the United Nations. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Malaysia. And I now give the floor to Venezuela, followed by China. Venezuela, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, allow me first to extend our congratulations to you upon your re-election and wish you every success in this important responsibility. All the more so given the crucial role that this committee is being called upon to play in the current context. In the same order of ideas, I'd like to thank the Ambassador of South Africa and the representative of UNRWA for their presentations. And now, briefly, I will make a few comments in reaction to these. Chair, with regard to the application by South Africa with regard to the Convention on Genocide, Venezuela welcomes the provisional measures handed down by the International Court of Justice. We believe, however, that the court failed in demanding all that was expected of it. It fell short. There was a clear demand for a ceasefire, in other words. We do, however, agree with the Ambassador of South Africa in that the provisional measures which were issued are difficult to be implemented if no progress is made towards a ceasefire. The declarations that have so far heard from the Israeli regime and make us think that the provisional measures will be ignored, but we wish nevertheless to maintain hope that the international community may be able to have some influence in promoting their implementation and thus alleviating the suffering of the Palestinian people. With regard to the situation of UNRWA, we wish to express our full trust and firm support for the vital work being done by this organization to provide assistance to the refugees from Palestine, not only in very adverse conditions linked to the current conflict, as well as those linked to a very difficult financial situation, which has been going on for years now. Chair, the work of UNRWA in Gaza is irreplaceable, which is why our call today is to avoid playing politics with the organization. The punitive measures recently announced by some donor countries in this regard prolong the collective punishment upon the Palestinian people, and ultimately they endanger the lives of millions of Palestinian people who benefit from the support and essential services provided to them by UNRWA. All specialized organizations are aware that what is needed today in Gaza is more humanitarian assistance, not a reduction in it, or a reduction in the necessary resources to guarantee aid arriving or reaching those who so desperately need it on the ground. This playing politics, Chair, is something we don't say lightly. In our opinion, it's not a pure coincidence that those who have announced the suspension of their contributions to UNRWA are the very same who simultaneously are providing Israel with the necessary means to continue perpetuating their crimes against the Palestinian people, despite the great deal of evidence that exists with regard to the use of such means, to continue the genocide currently underway, as expressed by South Africa's legal team to the International Court of Justice just a few weeks ago. These double standards must cease in the interest of the rights to life and peace of the heroic Palestinian people. Finally, with regard to the statement from Ambassador Mansour, I wish to express Venezuela's full support for the proposal of moving in two specific directions. If we truly wish to preserve the two-state solution. Firstly, with regard to Palestinians' admission as a full member of the United Nations, and secondly, the convening of an international peace conference, which will allow us to achieve tangible, palpable results. We would add, with the agreement of the Palestinian delegation, a third path, moving towards specific measures to provide international protection to the Palestinian people, also in line with a proposal made by the ambassador of Cuba, which was presented in the Kampala summit. I conclude reiterating my country's support for this committee's work and expressing our great willingness to participate actively in the work of this committee until the Palestinian people is fully able to exercise their inalienable rights and until we achieve the establishment of a free, independent, sovereign state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital and the pre-1967 borders. Thank you very much, Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of Venezuela. And now give the floor to China. followed by Guyana. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I would like to congratulate you, Ambassador Nian, for your election. We thank the Permanent Representative of South Africa and Palestine for their briefings and the Director of UNRWA for their efforts for the briefing. We appreciate the efforts of the committee to actively discharge its mandate and increase the international community's attention to and focus on the Palestinian question. We fully support the Palestinian people in exercising inalienable rights and promoting the comprehensive, just, and lasting solution to the Palestinian question. At present, the conflict in Gaza is still going on, and the world is witnessing an unprecedented humanitarian disaster. The scenes in Gaza constitute an affront to human conscience and a grave violation of the red line of international law. There is no justification. The international community must join all efforts to facilitate a ceasefire in Gaza so as to save lives and restore peace. We urge Israel to immediately stop its indiscriminate military attacks and its collective punishment of people in Gaza. The ICJ issued emergency provisional measures, and they must be implemented immediately. All parties should support UNRWA in its work and take all measures to ease the humanitarian disaster in Gaza. Israel should immediately remove its multiple barriers to humanitarian access and open up all crossing points at an early date, while ensuring the safety, rapid, and unhindered access of humanitarian supplies. The crux of the prolongation of the Israeli-Palestinian question is that the two-state solution has yet to be realized, and the basic rights of the Palestinian people have not been guaranteed. The two-state solution is the only way out. We call for an international peace conference that is more broad-based and effective and create a concrete roadmap and timetable. China supports Palestine becoming a full member of the UN. China has always attached great importance to the Israeli-Palestinian question. President Xi Jinping of China on many occasions promotes initiatives on resolving the question, and for 11 consecutive years sent congratulatory messages to the UN Special Commemorative Meeting in observance of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. China has also provided multiple batches of financial and humanitarian supplies to Palestine. We have all along firmly supported the Palestinian people's just cause of restoring the legitimate national rights. We'll continue to make unremitting efforts to facilitate a ceasefire, ease the humanitarian crisis, implement a two-state solution, and realize a comprehensive, just, and lasting solution to the Palestinian question. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of China and now give the floor to Guyana, followed by the State of Palestine. Guyana, you have the floor.
I join in congratulating you on your election as chair of the committee and wish you and the members of the Bureau success as you carry out your functions at this most critical time for the Palestinian people. I thank the Secretary General, the Permanent Representative of South Africa, and the Director of the UNRWA Representative Office in New York for their briefings and for their advocacy and continued work in support of the Palestinian people. Guyana remains gravely concerned as the situation in the occupied territory deteriorates rapidly. There is general disregard for international law, including international humanitarian law and international human rights law, which has led to countless attacks on civilians and civilian objects, rendering no place safe. We condemn the ongoing attacks on hospitals, refugee camps, and UN facilities and call on Israel to cease the killings of innocent civilians. We underscore the obligation of Israel to respect and adhere to international law. Indiscriminate bombings and attacks have resulted in widespread death and destruction, with women and children accounting for the highest numbers of fatalities. Those surviving are doing so, as we heard in the briefing, under the most inhumane conditions imaginable, desperate for food, water, and shelter, and the wounded and sick are urgently in need of access to health care. In the face of this tragedy, Guyana commends the steadfastness of the people of Palestine and reiterates our full support and commitment to defending their legitimate rights, especially in the Security Council. As a member of the Council, Guyana is committed to working towards a ceasefire in Gaza, safe and unimpeded access to humanitarian aid, and for the unconditional release of all hostages and detainees. In addition, we will spare no efforts in promoting the implementation of the legally binding provisional orders made by the International Court of Justice, which seek to prevent violations of the Genocide Convention in Gaza. We will also continue to advocate for the implementation of the relevant Security Council and General Assembly resolutions, particularly those recently adopted in the context of the war in Gaza. Chair, we have noted with deep concern the allegations made against 12 UNRWA staff in relation to the October 7th events. We look forward to the conclusion of the UN's investigations into the matter and to appropriate action, if needed, being taken. Also of immense concern is the suspension of funding to UNRWA by several countries on account of allegations against 12 of the 13,000 UNRWA staff. We urge the governments of those countries to reconsider their decisions, which will gravely affect the survival of the entire civilian population in Palestine. UNRWA's continued functioning is critical to the survival of the Palestinian people, and I believe this is well recognized. In this regard, I wish to indicate that Guyana will contribute US dollars 150,000 to UNRWA for humanitarian relief in Gaza, and this will be sent shortly. Guyana underscores the importance of keeping the Palestinian question on the agenda of the international community and to accelerating efforts to secure a comprehensive, just, and peaceful solution to the cause. The catastrophic situation in Gaza is an opportunity and the momentum provides an opportunity and the momentum for the two-state solution and for the membership of Palestine of the UN to be advanced. This opportunity and momentum must not be lost. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Guyana and now give the floor to the last speaker, Ambassador of Palestine. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and I join delegation in extending warm congratulations to you on your re-election as Chair of the committee and renew our gratitude to you for your strong leadership along with all Bureau and committee members in support of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people and in support of justice and peace. The mandate, this committee, being very clear and very noble, and as noted by others, more necessary than ever. As Minister Mansour has already made a comprehensive statement this morning on behalf of the State of Palestine, I will try to be brief, but I must thank Ambassador Joyini of South Africa for her briefing to the committee about South Africa's application at the International Court of Justice against Israel under the Genocide Convention, and recognize, of course, the importance of the provisional measures indicated last Friday by the court towards protecting the Palestinian people from acts of genocide, incitement to genocide, and from further irreparable harm to the rights of our people. We are grateful to South Africa for undertaking this urgent and noble initiative, upholding responsibilities under international law and in an act of humanity and principled solidarity with the Palestinian people. As has also been stressed today, the provisional measures indicated by the court are binding, and therefore respect is mandatory. Continued defiance by Israel, the occupying power, must be met with consequences. It cannot be that we are all witness to the war crimes, crimes against humanity, and acts of genocide being perpetrated against Palestinians in Gaza and our people as a whole in this ongoing Nakba, and that we do not act, as all are obligated in line with international law and our shared political, humanitarian, and moral values, which this committee so firmly and commendably upholds. We urge support of all committee members and observers for this important process at the ICJ, as well as for the upcoming advisory opinion proceedings, which will begin on the 19th of February at the court on the prolonged violation of the Palestinian people's right to self-determination and the legality of this patently illegal colonial occupation and apartheid regime. And we do thank the committee once again for the study that has been commissioned in this regard, a very important contribution to the legal assessments of this grave situation. I would also like to extend our appreciation to Ambassador Gunnarsdottir for her briefing today on the work of UNRWA in these unprecedented times of humanitarian catastrophe. for the Palestinian civilian population in Gaza as a result of Israel's genocidal aggression, and the needs and instability affecting Palestine refugees across the region. We are grateful to UNRWA Commissioner General and to all agency staff for their dedicated efforts, including Palestinian staff serving even in the midst of their own displacement and loss of homes and even of their own families. We are assured by the strong support expressed by all delegations here for UNRWA. Again, more needed than ever in the midst of this crisis, and also the regrettable decision by some donors to suspend funding due to allegations by UNRWA of acts by a few staff members. As we have stressed in our letter today to the Security Council, such decisions are punitive and harm UNRWA's indispensable humanitarian mission, literally life-saving work, not least in these days of profound crisis, and will be more disastrous for the Palestine refugees in Gaza and beyond, only causing more hunger, more deprivation, more destitution, more despair and suffering. Such an inhumane, reckless outcome must be averted. An independent investigation has been launched by the Secretary General, and that is the path to accountability. Collective punishment cannot be justified. So we hope that donors will reconsider such decisions and hope that all countries that are able to support UNRWA do so with urgency. And we very much appreciate the efforts of all members and observers of this committee in support of UNRWA and all who are contributing to UNRWA, and also, of course, to the committee for its strong partnership with UNRWA and support for the rights of the Palestine refugees, as crucial to support for the rights of the Palestinian people as a whole and for their just cause. So I thank you, Chair, again, and express our sincere thanks again to the committee bureau and all members and observers with our affirmation as well of support for this committee's important work and an appeal for the committee to remain at the forefront of the international efforts to achieve a ceasefire as a matter of priority now, and to uphold international law and our collective responsibility to finally bring an end to this prolonged injustice and tragedy of our people. Thank you, Chair.
Je remercie.
I thank the Ambassador and Distinguished Representative of Palestine. I see that we have a request for the floor from Bolivia. Bolivia, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, Presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. On behalf of Bolivia, allow me to congratulate you for your well-deserved election as Chair of this committee. And we underscore your leadership. We are grateful for the important update of information by the Ambassador of Palestine. And we're grateful as well to South Africa and the Director of UNRWA for their briefings. Like all the states who have already spoken this morning, Bolivia calls for and demands a ceasefire to halt the genocide committed against the Palestinian people. The occupying power is not only continuing with its bombings and killings of Palestinian people in Gaza, but is also depriving them of basic foodstuffs for their survival: food, medicines, water, and other essentials. We deem it crucial for the authorities to be answerable to international justice for the genocide committed. We welcome the courageous initiative by South Africa in the application to the International Court of Justice, and we also welcome the provisional measures issued and will closely follow the process in the context of the Convention on Genocide. We echo also those voices who are calling upon those countries who have suspended their cooperation to reconsider their decision. It is not possible for the Palestinian people to suffer from the atrocities of the war and now to be denied international solidarity and exposed to collective punishment. Bolivia fully supports the entry of Palestine as a full member of the Organization of the United Nations and the organization of a peace conference to definitively provide peace and lasting stability to the Palestinian people. The self-determination of the Palestinian people cannot wait. Let us therefore support the two-state solution with a free, independent, sovereign Palestine upon the basis of the pre-1967 borders, including East Jerusalem as their capital. I thank you.
Je remercie.
I thank the distinguished representative of Bolivia. And I would also like to note how much I welcome the excellent quality of delegations' interventions, and they've insisted on the most important aspects: ceasefire, support to UNRWA, scrupulous implementation of the ICJ decision, and more generally the preservation of the two-state solution. So I would like to thank all of the delegations who've spoken once again. We have two briefers, Ambassador Yoni, who had to leave the room, and there were comments on the briefing that she provided. So I'm sure that the representative here of South Africa took note of this and will communicate the observations from speakers to her. And because I said I'm sure she will come back, it will come back because I'm sure that because we have an ongoing consultation process. So she'll be able to respond, and this will be an ongoing conversation, as will be the case, of course, with the director of UNRWA here in New York. But because she's here at the moment, I'd like to give her the floor, perhaps to see if she has any responses or reactions to what was said. You have the floor, Madame.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think I will be very brief. I would just like to thank you, Mr. Chair, and the committee for inviting me, especially at this very extraordinary time for the agency. And I would like also to express my appreciation to the members of the committee for your support to the agency, and not least to the Palestinian refugees, because this is about them. And both your political support and those who have expressed also financial support for the agency. And we will just be counting on you, as all other member states, to help us get through this and to ensure that UNRWA has the means to be able to fulfill its mandate, and especially now to prioritize the needs of the Palestinians in Gaza. And we are here, we have a small representative office here in New York, and we are at your disposal also if there is any additional information or anything like that you need. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Director Gotir, thank you very much for coming. Thank you also to the Ambassador of South Africa, Ambassador Joini, for taking your time to come and brief us. So thank you so very much, and we are looking forward to having more interaction in the future. Thank you. Let us now move to agenda item 7, the adoption of the draft program of work of the committee, which was circulated by the Secretariat to all committee members ahead of this meeting. I will briefly introduce the draft document. Section 1 outlines the mandates of the Committee and the Division for Palestinian Rights as contained in relevant GA resolutions 77/22 and 77/23. Section 2 enumerates the activities of the Committee and the Division for Palestinian Rights for 2024. In particular, and against the backdrop of unprecedented hostilities in the Gaza Strip, the Committee will continue to support urgent international efforts to achieve a just and peaceful solution to the question of Palestine. Priorities in 2024 will be centered around 4 main aspects of the mandate. The first one is the mobilization of the diplomatic community under subsection A through periodic briefings and engagement with member states at headquarters in New York, and the observance of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian People. Then we have, secondly, subsection B, raising awareness on the question of Palestine including through the website United Nations Information System on the question of Palestine, 2024 conferences and events, as well as the committee's publications program. Thirdly, we have subsection C, which is highlighting the committee's cooperation with intergovernmental organizations, non-governmental and interparliamentary organizations, as well as UN system entities. Finally, and fourthly and finally, subsection D informs about the planned capacity development program for staff of the government of the State of Palestine. Section 3 refers to the practice of regularly reviewing, assessing, and adjusting the program's activities. The program of work was crafted to enable greater flexibility during implementation and to accommodate activities related to evolving events on the ground. Excellencies, dear colleagues, we count on your continued engagement for the successful implementation of the committee's program of work and its mandate. I now at this point open the floor for any comments you may have before we adopt the draft. Are there any comments? If there are no comments, may I take it that the committee wishes to approve its program of work for 2024 as contained in document A/AC183/2024/L3. It is so decided. Before I proceed with agenda item 8, I wish to thank the committee members and others for their strong show of support at the events organized in observance of the 2024 International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian People, held in New York and overseas on or around the 29th of November, and the solidarity messages sent by head of states and government. Yes, I have to correct, in observance of the 2023 International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian People. So I would like now to inform you about recent and upcoming activities of the committee that have relevance for our work in 2024. On the 23rd of January at the Security Council open debate on the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question, Mrs. Helena Dapewa Kuzi, Deputy Permanent Representative of the Republic of Namibia to the United Nations, delivered a statement on behalf of the chair of the committee calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, safe and unimpeded access of humanitarian aid, the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages and detainees, and the full adherence by all parties to the obligations under international law and Security Council resolutions. We also called for convening an immediate international conference and a new negotiating process aimed at resolving the question of Palestine in all its aspects, including the accession of the State of Palestine as a full member of the UN. The statement is available also in Arabic on the UNISPAL site at www.un.org/UNISPAL. On this website, you will also be able to access the different documents prepared by the Secretariat, monthly bulletins, weekly NGO action news, annual compilations of UN resolutions and reports, which are regularly disseminated in different languages via email to the membership and a growing list of subscribers, demonstrating the interest of the wider public on the question of Palestine. And if you are not on this distribution list and you wish to be on it, please approach the Secretariat, and you can also subscribe by visiting the website. Turning now to upcoming activities, I would like to inform you about the following. On the 27th of February, the division will organize its annual briefing session for new delegates on the mandate and work of the committee and the division. I encourage all delegates, particularly those new to the UN headquarters and the committee, to take advantage of this useful briefing. The Secretariat will continue to share information via email. On the 13th of March, the committee will hold its annual event on the margins of the annual session of the Commission on the Status of women. Further information will be shared in the coming weeks on this. On the 3rd and 4th of April, the committee will convene an international conference of civil society organizations working on the question of Palestine to be held at the United Nations office in Geneva. Moreover, I would also like to inform that the Bureau will continue its outreach to member states, including members of the Security Council, to call for political horizon and a just and lasting solution to the question of Palestine. Do you have any comments? If there are no comments, let us now move to the last item on the agenda, other matters. And before I open the floor, I would like to give the floor to Director Elio Tambouri of the Division of Palestinian Rights, who wants to share some information.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your honorary re-election. I just wanted to mention that the legal study on the legality of the Israeli occupation that was commissioned by the committee and prepared by the University of Ireland, we have additional copies here in English. The study, if you want to, before you go, you can grab a copy. The study is now in English. We're printing the version in Arabic, and on the website, the municipal website, you can find also versions in other languages too, that are electronic for the time being. We also have extra copies of the set of booklets that contain the photos, the exhibits that were prepared by the committee on the last few years. You also can grab a copy on the way out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Tambouri. Does anyone want to take the floor under other matters? If there are no other matters to be discussed, I will adjourn the meeting. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.